Hi, I'm Teacher Joy. Let's talk about the scientific method. Now, after this lesson, you should be able to identify the components of scientific investigation. Use the scientific method in solving problems through an experiment. Relate scientific method in daily life. Before we proceed, please respond to the question that follow. You can have a copy of this in your Quarter 1, Week 1, Lesson 1 Module page 5. Don't worry, there is no wrong or right answer yet. This is just to assess you about your prior knowledge about the topic. Choose the letter of the best answer. Write the chosen letter on a separate sheet of paper. Now, number 1, you want to find out which denser, milk or water. This question represents number 2, an orderly, systematic approach to problem solving. Number 3, what part of scientific method tells us the real answer to the problem? Number 4, when a medical technologist performs such tests such as blood test, urinalysis, fecalysis, and X-ray, he is performing a... Number 5, which of the following is the correct step of scientific method? Now, answering these questions already gives you ideas on what you are about to learn. Now, have you ever had a question about the world? Like what plants need to grow? Or why sugar dissolves faster in hot water? Any of this sounds familiar? You know, there is a way to find the answer to these questions used by scientists. It is called the scientific method. If you will use it, you can be a scientist too. But what is scientific method? Who uses it? You know, everyone uses it every day, even you. Now, these are the steps in scientific method. Let's discuss them one by one. The first step is identifying a problem or asking a question. The problem is usually stated in a question form. A scientific method starts when you ask a question about something that you have observed. A problem should be simple, clear, and answerable. For example, what factors affect the seed growth? How can I make the battery life of my cell phone last longer? After identifying the problem, proceed to the second step. And the second step is conducting a research or gathering information about the problem. You can use books, magazines, reports, or you can ask an expert. And you can also gather information by observation and from your experiences or prior knowledge. But what is an observation? An observation is using one or more of your 5 senses to gather information. Your senses include sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Sometimes technological devices like microscope are used to help. This will make your observation clear and detailed. Now, there are 2 types of observation: the quantitative observation and qualitative observation. Quantitative observation from the word quantity, so it involves numbers or an amount. For example, seeing that you have 2 text messages on your phone is a quantitative observation, while qualitative observation from the word quality, so it involves descriptions that cannot be expressed with numbers. For example, you have noticed that the bike is blue or that the grape tastes sour are example of qualitative observations. And when we say inference, inference are explanation for an observation you have. They are based on your past experiences or prior knowledge. For example, if you have seen your friend smile after getting back a test, you might infer that she got a good grade. And another example, kapag nakita mo ang iyong kaklase na mamumula ang mata, so you infer na siya ay umiyak. O di kaya, siya ay mayroong sore eyes. At binase mo yung explanation na to base sa iyong past experience. After identifying the problem, the next step is to formulate or to make a hypothesis. But what is hypothesis? A hypothesis is a possible answer to the problem o yung tinatawag nating kutob. Di ba pag may problema tayo, may pumapasok sa isip natin na posibleng sagot sa ating problema o ang ating kutob. Sa science, tatawagin natin itong hypothesis. Hypothesis is based upon your gathered information and prior knowledge. That's why it is also called an educated guess. Hypothesis is usually stated in an if, then, because sentence. If states what variable or factor will be changed or you purposely change. So this is the manipulated o yung tinatawag nating independent variable. Then states what will happen because of the change, manipulated or independent variable, or the response of our independent variable described in the if statement. So this is the responding or dependent variable. And because states how you know this will occur. It should be based on something you have experienced or something you infer. Now, let us try to formulate a hypothesis using this problem. How does the amount of fertilizer affect the seed growth? Now, based on this problem, our independent variable or manipulated variable is the amount of fertilizer because this is the variable you want to change or you purposely change. Dahil gusto mong malaman kung paano nakakaapekto yung dami ng fertilizer sa growth ng seed. So, dahil binago mo ang dami ng fertilizer na nilagay mo sa bawat seeds, ano ang magiging epekto nito? So, ang epekto nito ay siyang magiging responding variable natin or dependent variable. At ang ating dependent variable ay ang growth ng seeds. That is because this is the variable that responds or changes because of our manipulated variable or independent variable. Now, our hypothesis would be based kung paano i-state yung hypothesis kanina is if I increase the amount of fertilizer on the seeds, then the seeds will grow faster because the seeds will have more nutrients to grow faster provided by the fertilizer increase. Now, it's your turn. So, sa activity na to, you are going to read and analyze the situation, and then you're going to formulate a hypothesis as many as possible. So, makikita yung activity na to in your Module 1, Quarter 1, Week 1, page 25. Dahil ang hypothesis ay ang ating kutob pa lamang, so hindi pa ito ang tamang kasagutan sa problema. Kaya ang kutob na ito ay dapat nating patunayan. At dito na papasok ang pang-apat na step. And the fourth step is to test the hypothesis through an experiment. An experiment is an organized process used to test a hypothesis. It is done to test the effect of one thing or another using a controlled condition. This should include a materials list and a procedure with a step-by-step direction. Now, if you have already the materials needed, in the step-by-step direction or procedure, it's time for you to do the experiment. Now, let us look at the four setup. Setup A, 1 teaspoon of fertilizer ang nilagay. Setup B, 2 teaspoon of fertilizer. Setup C, 3 teaspoon of fertilizer. And setup D, is the control with no fertilizer. An experiment is usually consists of at least two variables. Variables are the factors that are tested in the experiments. Ito po ang mga bagay o pangyayari na nakakaapekto sa resulta ng iyong ginagawa o yun ng iyong experiment. There are three types of variable you need to identify in the experiment: the independent variable, the dependent variable, and the controlled variable. An independent variable is the variable you purposely manipulate or change. And in this experiment, our independent variable is the amount of fertilizer. At dahil binago natin ang amount of fertilizer, ang magiging epekto nito ay siyang magiging dependent variable. Dependent variable is the variable that changes in response to the independent variable. And in this experiment, our dependent variable is the height of the seedling. And to be sure we are testing to see how the amount of fertilizer affect the seed growth, we must keep other factors the same or constant. These factors are called as the control variable. Now, in this experiment, we must keep this factor the same: the type of soil, the type of seed, the amount of water, and temperature. And after doing the experiment, proceed to the fifth step. And the fifth step is to collect or record and analyze the result. Observe what happens and write it down and present it. It may be in a table form, graph, or written work. For example, in the result of this experiment, the data is presented in a table form. Using this, we can see easily which setup has the tallest seedling, and that is setup C, which is 3 cm in height in day 3, wherein naglagay dito ng 3 teaspoon of fertilizer. And which setup is the shortest, and that is the control, 1 cm in height in day 3, which has no fertilizer. We can also convert this data into a graph. It also helps us to analyze the result easily. As you can see, setup C is the tallest, represented by gray line, and the shortest is the control, represented by the yellow line. After analyzing the result, it's time for you to make a conclusion. Conclusion is a judgment based on the result of an experiment. Now, based on the result of our experiment, our conclusion would be increasing the amount of fertilizer on the seeds make the seeds grow faster or taller, because the seeds will have more nutrients to grow faster provided by the fertilizer increase. Now, do our conclusion supports our hypothesis? Yes, it supports our hypothesis. If the result or your conclusion support your hypothesis, repeat the experiment to verify it. But if the result does not support your hypothesis, what you're going to do is to revise the hypothesis and do the experiment again. Now it's your turn. You're going to use the scientific method in solving problems through an experiment. You can have a copy of this in your Module 1, Quarter 1, Week 1, pages 8 to 10. So, ang gagawin nyo dito is to identify the components of scientific investigation. So, ihahanda nyo yung mga materials na to: 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 identical containers, 2 identical stirrers, 2 250 ml of water placed in the container. Then, susundin nyo yung procedure na to. Number 1, prove the statement. The solubility of sugar in water is higher than the solubility of salt given in the same condition. Number 2, prepare the setup. Number 3, pour the 250 ml of water into 500 ml beaker of salt mixture and the other 250 ml of sugar mixture. Then number 4, add the 2 tablespoons of salt into the first beaker and 2 tablespoons of sugar into the second beaker at the same time. Then number 5, stir the mixture, haluin at the same time at the same rate for a minute. Then number 6, observe the mixture and record your observation. And number 7, based on the findings, state the conclusion of the simple investigation. So ito po yung part na sasagutan ninyo. Yung problem, hypothesis, yung materials na ginamit ninyo, yung procedure ng experiment ninyo, the analysis, and the conclusion. Now, let us answer this activity. Based on the given situation, the problem is, which is more soluble, sugar or salt? Number 2, the hypothesis. The solubility of sugar in water is higher than the solubility of the salt given at the same condition. Now, number 3, ang mga materials na ginamit natin, 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 500 ml beaker, 2 identical stirrers, and dalawang 250 ml of water. So, sa number 4, the experiment part, dito nyo po ilalagay yung procedure, yung step by step. And then, for number 5, the analysis part, dito nyo i-record yung inyong observation. And then, number 6, the conclusion. So, kung ang inyong base sa observation ninyo, yung sugar ay mas mabilis na tunaw kaysa sa asin, so dito nyo po ilalagay. Now, sa page 10 ng inyong module, so you're going to answer this katulad ng ginawa natin wherein nag-identify tayo ng steps ng scientific method in the experiment that you have conducted. And to summarize what we have discussed,